Welcome to the podcast, where something is amiss, something is a mess, and we'll discuss some things MS, multiple sclerosis. This podcast is meant to tell the stories of those living day to day with MS, from before they were diagnosed, getting that diagnosis, the aftermath, and where they are today in their journey with multiple sclerosis. And now, let's get on with the show. Welcome to Some Things MS. Welcome back to the podcast, Some Things MS, where we talk about some things that are amiss, that are a mess, and talking all about MS. And we're always excited to have MS warriors on with us. And today we're welcoming Kuwazaki Vonachen, who is local here in Colorado. And I just got to meet, so I'm so excited to have you on to hear your story. And welcome.
Thanks, Bobby. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like I said, love telling these stories. I think they're important to get out. You and I were just talking before we started on just kind of the importance of doing this and getting our stories out there and kind of breaking down those barriers. Let's just really give us just a quick intro about who you are and what you do, and then we'll get
Okay.
into kind of our MS journey.
Yeah. So outside of MS, I am a wife. I will be married for 13 years coming up here this June. I have 4 kiddos ranging in age from almost 30 all the way down to almost 10. I have a grandbaby. She will be 2 in June.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm a full-time accountant. In my spare time, I volunteer. And so pretty much that's just me in a nutshell. I think I said I'm a full-time accountant.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's pretty much me outside of MS.
Nice. So let's dive right in. So talk about we'll start off like at what age were you diagnosed?
So I was 43. I had just turned 43. It was August of 2020. And for me, it was very unexpected. At least I think it was unexpected. I didn't actually have to pay attention until I had to pay attention.
Yeah.
Doctor said I'd likely had it for a few years. And looking back, I can probably pinpoint some things, but with MS, it's such a weird disease, and there's so many different symptoms that you can point it to something else. I was tired. Well, I was a mom of 4, and I was a wife and worked full time. And there's all these things that I could be tired from.
Mm-hmm.
My muscles sometimes would do weird things. And it's like, well, again, maybe it's just fatigue. Who knows? I was very much into exercise and things like that. And so, likely I had it for a few years. I finally had to pay attention in August of 2020 because I lost my ability to walk. And so then I knew something serious was happening, and I had to do something about it at that point.
Yeah. So that's again a common theme, just because the symptoms there's just nothing that's 100% right there in your face with it. It's always like it can be something that's easily explainable in other areas. A lot of times fatigue or muscle contractions or numbness, even like, hey, that could just be just you're not really, it's nothing, unless you've had a major attack. It's just these kind of minor symptoms which typically happen slowly for most people, just kind of leading up. Or you can go back, like you said, it's like, wow, I didn't think about it, I had this major attack, but yeah, if I look back 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, that maybe I was feeling these things all along. So you figure then that before your attack in August of 2020, where you lost your ability to walk, you think it'd been a couple years you've been feeling symptoms?
Yeah, and the doctors had said likely it had been a few years. They did say that it was likely stress related that caused it. There was a lot of stress in my life. The summer of 2020, COVID being one of them.
Yeah.
For everybody. But there was some personal stuff happening in my life with my children during that time. And I think there was just one big, huge stressor that finally set it off.
Yeah.
I tried to push it aside as well. I've had a couple back surgeries. So to your point with the nerves and stuff, I just like when I went to the hospital for the MS, I likely thought they're going to just send me home. It's a pinched nerve. I've had 2 back surgeries. There's another one in there. I have a degenerative disc disease as well. So I thought it was all just something was pinched in there. So even even when I had to pay attention, I never jumped to MS. Never. There was nobody in my family that has it. The only person I know that has it is my husband's aunt. Uh, and that's a very bad case.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it never dawned on me that this was
Yeah.
happening to me.
And did you know she had it before you got diagnosed, or was that something you found out after the fact?
I did know she is actually in hospice care as we speak. She's
Hmm.
on her last few days. But I did know. And so when the doctor came in to kind of tell me what was going on, what he thought was going on, my first thought went to her. She is completely paralyzed from the
Yeah.
neck down. And besides that, I knew nothing of MS prior to me being diagnosed. Now I probably know more than I ever cared to know about
Yeah.
MS.
Yeah.
But prior, that was my reference point. And honestly, when I was in the ER, I can't even recall what the doctor said to me after the word MS came out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Honestly, don't have any clue.
Yeah. So when you had time to kind of let it settle in, how much did having that knowledge of your husband's aunt affect your immediate thinking? Like, what did that what did you feel like at that point? Was it just kind of describe that?
The feeling of being told and just having her or having.
Yeah, just knowing that your only exposure to MS was this pretty advanced case, and now you've heard that
Yeah.
I've got this as well.
Yeah. So when the doctor came into the ER, after I had an MRI done right away, and this was on a Monday, my symptoms started on I think it started on a Saturday, to be
Mm,
honest with you. I had a really bad migraine that Saturday, and we were at the Gaylord celebrating my 43rd birthday. And then it kind of subsided. But then on Sunday, when I woke up, the headache was gone, but that's when I felt off. Something
yeah.
was just not right. And then I ended up in the ER on Monday. And we were actually joking. So they put me through MRs. They put me through a stroke test. I
Yeah, of
ended up
course.
at the urgent care first. And let me back up a little bit. So,
Yeah.
kind of embarrassing to say this out loud. I did not say this at the Bike MS event that I spoke at. So it's kind of embarrassing. But my daughter was having a birthday this week. And she's also having a bachelorette party in Vegas. And I had set everything up. I had like a surprise limo waiting. We had the hotels, like everything. And I was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I think my plane was supposed to leave on Wednesday. And so when the symptoms started on Sunday, I went to work on Monday and they kind of kept progressing. I kept pushing it aside. I'm like, nope, nope. I need to get to Vegas. I don't want to call my doctor. I can, and it
Yeah.
finally got to a point on Monday where I couldn't ignore them. My left hand stopped working. My
Yeah.
lips started tingling. So I had called my doctor and I was like, what do you want me to do? Right away, go to urgent care. Went to urgent care, drove myself, and I worked at the tech center at the time. And I live in Thornton. So it's, an hour trek.
Yeah.
So went to work, came home, went to urgent care. They gave me a stroke test. They thought I was having a stroke. My left face was drooping at the time and gave me a stroke test. He's like, we need to send you by ambulance to the ER. I don't care for the theatrics. I don't need any of that. Called my son. Can you pick me up? Take me here. So he did. Got to the ER. They gave me another stroke test, MRIs, ton of blood work. I can't even tell you how many vials of blood they took from me.
Mhm.
So now to your present question, doctor comes in. My husband and I were joking around because, every time we go to the hospital, obviously I'm in the hospital bed, he's in a chair. And we were joking around that I always get the comfortable bed and he's always stuck in a chair. So we were laughing, joking around. The doctor walks in. We're still laughing. Doctor sits down. Should have known then. Doctors never sit down.
Yeah.
And yeah, looking back on it now, I was like, yeah, I should have no, but I was still we were still joking around. And I remember the first words out of his mouth were, we found lesions on your brain.
Mm.
It could likely be MS, or it could likely be a stroke or MS, kind of leaning more towards MS. Honestly, I don't remember much after that because when he said the word MS, my mind went straight to my husband's aunt.
Yeah.
And I freaked out. I started crying. I remember the nurse leaving the room. She came back and brought me a tissue box. I remember him saying, we need to admit you for the night to do more tests in the morning. Because at this point, I think it was like 10 or 11 o'clock on this Monday night. We need to admit you to do some more testing in the morning. I honestly don't know what else he said.
Mm.
Could not tell you because my mind went straight to my husband's aunt, and this is my reality.
Yeah.
like I said, I knew nothing about it other than what her current state was. And I mean, she was diagnosed back in the 80s, so she's had it for a while.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything though. I knew no medications. I didn't know what the symptoms were. So it was extremely, extremely overwhelming for me. I don't think I stopped crying that night after
Yeah.
they admitted me. So that's where
And
I was
they kept you in the hospital at that point to do more tests to kind of keep going before they gave you the final diagnosis.
Yeah, so I didn't actually get released until Saturday.
Okay. Yeah.
um, Very upsetting. I kind of accepted my fate the next morning. They did a CT scan first thing the next morning.
Okay.
And I spent that first night in the hospital by myself. First of all, it was COVID. There was COVID protocols. I was not allowed to have visitors. I could have one visitor.
Yeah.
Fortunately, when my son dropped me off, he had a therapy session going on, so he was not able to come in with me.
Yeah.
Later, come to find out, they were allowing the same person
Yeah.
to visit.
Yep.
So luckily, he did not come in. So therefore, Adam was allowed for the
Yeah.
week. But he had to leave. We had a 5-year-old at the time as well. So I spent that first night in the hospital. Well, I spent every night in the hospital by myself, but that first night was by far the scariest time of my life.
Yeah.
Nothing but time. They had hooked me up to steroids right away. So I couldn't sleep. I felt gross. I had all this stuff happening.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I had nothing but time to Google all this stuff. So the next morning, they sent me down for a CT scan. And I think there was more blood tests. I honestly don't remember. And the CT scan came back pretty quick.
Yeah.
They told me, "Oh, the CT scan is clear." I was ecstatic. This is great news. They're like, "Well, all that really does is rule out the stroke."
Mm.
So 100% focus was on the MS at this point. This was a Tuesday morning, and so I had daily PT and OT because I had lost my ability to do anything.
Right.
And I stayed in the hospital until Saturday. I
Yeah.
had a spinal tap at some point.
Yeah. I was gonna ask if you had the spinal tap because that's another. Some people don't end up getting it because their MRIs are so definitive that they don't go through the process I did. Lots of other people do because it is another definitive marker.
Yeah, yes. I can't remember if I had it on Tuesday. I can't remember at what point I had it. But I had the spinal tap. That was not fun for me.
Yeah.
I think it's because I've had some back surgeries, and
Yeah.
so it wasn't completely numb
Mm.
for me.
Yeah.
And so they had told me, they're like, "Well, this will tell us either way for
Yeah.
sure." And they're like, "Well, probably you won't have the results until you get released from the hospital." I was released on Saturday. That Saturday morning, they actually gave me the results of the spinal tap.
Yeah.
And I had 7 O-bands that they had found.
Yeah.
And I got that diagnosis. So I feel very fortunate. My first symptom was on Sunday, by all means, on that morning that I woke up. And then by Saturday, so 6 days, I had my diagnosis.
Yeah.
I feel very fortunate for that. I know a lot of people don't get that. There's people that are still waiting even
Yeah.
years after the fact. So
Neurological diseases cross over in such a manner that unless there's again some really definitive things happening that yeah you got to be careful you want to go down the right path at the right time
yep.
and make sure you're treating something properly. So yeah, it again you're right. It's kind of good and bad. I mean, it's good that you get to start working directly. It's bad that you've had this thing that you now have attached to yourself for forever and ever until we find a cure, which is so awesome that we're talking cure now.
We're getting closer. We're getting
Yeah,
closer. Every day we're getting closer to that cure. So
yeah,
I would not wish this upon my worst enemy.
yeah,
I have good days and bad days. Obviously I don't look sick. So I feel very fortunate where I'm at right now and with how far medical advances have come. And I know that someday we will get that cure.
yeah. You bet.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned you have a 5-year-old, you have 4 kids overall. So one's grown, so probably less of a concern going forward. But any immediate thoughts around, how it was going to affect you and your family? Like, just what did that feel like for you? Knowing that, again, having this idea that, the only person I know with MS is, paralyzed now, but I've got, family to take care of, a job, just kind of talk about those two aspects and how how you kind of worked around those to get in a positive place.
Yeah, so it took me a hot minute to come to terms. I went into a deep, dark place for about a year, from
Mm.
August of 2020 to August of 2021. Nobody but my immediate family knew what was going on with me. I felt like I was broken. I felt like there was something wrong with me. I just felt like, my life was done. Like it was just done.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have my son, my 5-year-old is now almost 10. So fortunately, we have a very tight knit family. All the kids are very close, despite the age difference. I'm very close, and so we were actually able, even the 5-year-old, coming down to his level, was able to kind of tell him what was going on at a 5-year-old level. So I
Yeah.
was very open and honest right from the start with my 4 children, my husband, my in-laws. Um, Very, very close friends knew at the time what was going on, only because I thought I would need help.
Mhm.
Hey, this is what's going on with us, and I have a very good support network, and it continues to this day. And so everybody that knew in our circle stepped up right away,
Yeah.
because at that time it was so scary. I had no idea um, what my life was going to become, how much help we would need. Um, so that part was actually really awesome for me. I had people rallying around me. Work, actually, when my symptoms started on, or when I came into work on that Monday, I had talked to my job, and we half joked around that I was having a stroke. You should probably go. So they knew right from the start. People pulled together vacation time, gave me all the time
Mm.
off that I needed. That was really a good experience for me as well. I never lost income. Everybody was super understanding. Everybody picked up my slack. Overall, I mean, I am very fortunate and blessed in this life that I have what I have, and I had what I
Yeah.
had at the time. I didn't really feel, except for me personally with the newfound disease, I didn't really feel any hardship, I guess,
Yeah.
because I had so much help and so much understanding from all aspects of my life. Um, which was super awesome for me.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah,
So, if you don't mind me asking, with the it's a beautiful support system, and like you said, a lot of people might not have that. You might not have a job that you might have a job that you have to be at a certain level to operate, and they don't care, and you get really there's so many different things that could be around that, or you don't have the support system in your family, or don't feel comfortable addressing either of those. So you had all this, but you still mentioned you were in a dark place for about a year. Two things. What do you think put you there and kept you there with this really kind of robust support system? And then two, what brought you out of it?
yeah, those are good questions. So, it was my surroundings were amazing. It was me personally. I could not wrap my brain around I now have this disease for the rest of my life.
Mm,
And I made the mistake of Googling like crazy. I mean, I spent that whole week in the hospital by myself. Adam would come, he would drop AJ off at school.
yeah.
Well, it was remote learning, but then he would come and spend the day with me. But then I had all these nights by myself for an entire week. And so I would do nothing but Google and look at
Which can
support
be
groups.
awesome and awful at the same time, right? Like Google is so cool because it gives you all this information, but then what you've got is all this information. So,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, yeah. I mean, I never recommend Googling anything. I thought I was dying. So, but
Google with
yes,
an asterisk. You just set it aside and keep asking questions. It's great to get some foundational stuff. But yeah, so you're there, like you said, you're Googling, you're kind of in your own world.
yeah, and I had joined like right away that first night. I was on Facebook, and I had joined some support groups. Since learned in 4 years I've had this disease that you need to take those support groups with a grain of salt. But
Yeah.
because there's a lot of negativity in those support groups, and yeah, and like I said, I mean, I did as much research as I could possibly do in that week, but I still felt like something was wrong with me, that I am now broken, that I
Mm,
cannot do the same things I used to do, even though I still attempted to do the same things. And I learned very quickly that you cannot do those things. Or if you do those things, you may be able to do those things, but then you're going to pay for it the next day or the
yeah.
next 2 days. Sometimes, I do too much and I pay for it for a complete week.
Mhm.
So that's what brought me down the whole. And I don't. I don't like to I don't like to be negative. So unless I mention that something really is wrong, my family doesn't, or even my support network doesn't know anything's wrong with me. I
Yeah.
hide my fatigue. I hide my pain. I just, I don't know why that is. I take on a lot of it by myself. And so I dealt with a lot of that by myself for an entire year
Yeah.
because I didn't want to be a burden. Maybe that's what the right word is. I didn't want to be a burden.
That's such a just a, it's a hard one to get past. Like I think a lot of people are like us, or like, I think it's just a common theme of I do the same thing. I just recently I've gotten more and more comfortable. Again, I still don't want to spend hours talking about my fatigue or anything. It's just not something it's like there's so many people out there that are in such worse condition than I am that I feel blessed to be where I am. So it's like, yes, it's hard for me to, sit around and harangue somebody for an hour about being tired. But I am more open to talking about it, as the years went on. It's like, yeah, I think it's better if I just, again, I don't want to dwell on it, but yeah, it's helpful to for people to be they want to be there for you, and it's a natural reaction for us to, like you said, to be a little bit more guarded and not want to be a guarded and not want to be a burden.
Yeah, because you've had it for several years, correct? I mean, it's been a
Uh,
long
20 coming up on 20. This will be 20 this year. So I'm just past 20 years being diagnosed. Yeah.
Yeah, and you still struggle with, yeah, and I'm only coming up on 4 years. So it is a big struggle when you're used to being independent and used
Yeah.
to not complaining. And yeah. So yeah, for that first year, I kept to myself. And even to this day, to a point, unless I am really overwhelmed or really are in pain or something is really wrong with me, I still won't mention it.
Yeah.
I think that's just that's my personality. What made me come out of it? That's a good question. I don't think there was one singular thing. I think uh, one day, it was August of 2021. I was on my 44th birthday, and by nature, I'm optimistic and I'm positive and I'm happy. And I think I just had enough. I think one day I just kind of woke up and was like, "What am I doing?
Yeah.
Okay, you've had a year of your pity party, and let's get back to you." I mean, my weight skyrocketed. I lost interest. I was super into spin classes. I had kind of lost all that. I didn't care about my health, and I just kind of woke up and was like, "I don't. What am I doing? I'm wasting all of this." I think there's two choices in life. You can be positive and optimistic. You can be negative and just mad all the time.
Yeah.
I did go through all the emotions. I was angry. I was sad. I was confused. I felt guilty. All those things. And then finally, I was just like, no, I'm done doing that. There is a reason I was handed this disease. I don't know what that reason is. I kind of understand it more now. This is just the way I look at life.
Yeah.
There's a reason for everything. And I think my reasoning was I was chosen to bring awareness and fundraise and get closer to a cure and help people, and that, so I just kind of took that on.
Yeah.
The very first event I did was Bike MS. Coming out of that whole year of depression, that's what I did.
That's
So
awesome. And just gonna say a side point, this transcends MS, but just it's a great life point, and it's so simple, but truly, just smiling in a situation where you don't want to smile, you know, just saying to yourself and reminding yourself to be positive when you don't want to be positive is so powerful. It's a powerful drug. I mean, it may sound silly and simple, but it's key. I mean, it really is key. You hear it so often. It's just a simple act of saying to yourself, I don't want to, I don't want, affirming, I'm happy because of this. These things make, as opposed to these things make me mad, or again, focusing on the negative. And again, it transcends MS or any of that stuff. And it's awesome that you were kind of there, and that helps you, kind of pull out of it, because some folks don't, and then it's just tough to see that, because that there's choices there.
yeah, like you said, just life in general, whether you have a disease or not, just you can choose how to live it. And being positive just makes, and you can't change it. So
Yeah,
you can be positive or you can be negative. And I just have found that being negative, obviously, for that year didn't do me any good, and it didn't change where
it
I was
doesn't
at. And so,
doesn't
you know,
change where it doesn't change where you're at. Like you said, it kind of your situation is still your situation, so you might as well come at it with as much positivity and much proaction as you can, as opposed to reaction and negativity. So yeah, that's great.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's changed your life. You got back into things. So things you talked about that are important for folks that are listening to this and maybe are just into this, but you got back to doing things you like to do, knowing that there's a price sometimes, because you do have to make decisions on what's important to you.
Yep.
So that you keep your body healthy. So what do you, kind of, did you go back to doing everything the same, or kind of talk a little bit about how you altered your life after that year? You got back into, a new routine that was, cognizant of your MS diagnosis that, left you in a state where you had to kind of, be a little bit different about the way you approached.
Right. I first, I feel like, I want to say first off, I think it's important to grieve. And I think that I don't feel like I wasted that year. I feel like I took the time I needed to grieve my, not really my old self, but prior to my diagnosis, I was able to work through it. And then I came out the other side even better. So I do think it's important to take the time for yourself, however you do it, to grieve what once was. And then that way you can put it behind you and then you can look forward to the future.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I do think it was important. I don't think that I wasted any time.
Not at all. That's just going to stop there and just affirm that. It's such an important, because it's okay if you grieve right in the moment, like, hey, day two, I'm grieving, and that grieving period went from, one to whatever number of days. Hopefully you're able to limit it to, it's not forever, but just, yeah, definitely having a grieving period that works for you, and being okay with it if it comes a year later. Like maybe you don't grieve right away, and a year later it hits you. Yeah, just let that moment set in and grieve at that point, and own that, and let yourself and your body and your mind learn from it. So yeah, just yeah, appreciate that call out, because that's important. It's not wasted time.
Yeah, and onto that your same point, I feel like there are still moments that I do grieve.
Of course,
I
yeah,
spent the bulk of my time grieving, and then I came out of it. But there are still days that I was like, "What is going on? Like, why is this my life?" I don't
yeah,
sit there very long anymore.
yeah,
It's very fast for me now. But I mean, I think it's important to also allow yourself those days, because just because you think you're done grieving, or what society says, okay, you've had enough grieving time. No, there's never a set amount of time, and it's person to person, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah,
I actually think I do more now than I did before the MS diagnosis. I set up a bucket list, because I just don't know. MS is
yeah,
I'm on great medication, and so I don't foresee ever completely losing my abilities again. I did lose my abilities to walk after I got out of the hospital. So it did happen one other time. So I just don't know. And so I've actually looked at life differently. I embrace life differently. I live each day like, not like it's my last, but like, like I want to live life. I want to experience life. So I think one of the first things I did after the diagnosis, after that year, was I went skydiving.
nice.
Yeah, it was something I wanted to do, but I'm scared of heights. I don't like plane rides, so jumping out of a plane.
Wow, yeah, that's nailing a couple of them right there. Afraid of
Yeah,
heights, jumping out of things you shouldn't be jumping out of. you know,
exactly, exactly. So I really, I take a lot of trips, and I embrace life differently now. I have a whole different outlook on life now, and
yeah,
so my life did change. I think it changed for the better. I volunteer more. I'm back to my exercise routines. I show myself grace, though. I was, doing spin classes sometimes up to 3 times a day, 7 days a week. And that's what I was doing right up to the diagnosis. And now I just show myself grace. Like if I can't make it to a class, that it's okay. Like
yeah,
give myself some time to do that. So my life did absolutely change, but I believe, like I said, it changed way for the better. I don't stress out about things. Well, first of all, stress causes my symptoms to rear their ugly head.
yeah,
So I really, I look at life like, what's important to stress out about. I mean, stress is a normal human emotion, and things happen in life that will stress you out. But I just, I don't get angry about things as easily anymore. I
yeah,
try to look at the bigger picture. And so I think my life has changed for the
yeah.
better.
Yeah, I didn't grieve right away. I mean, it was like you have MS, and I was immediately on Google and books, and just head first into just beating the crap out of it. I just had zero pause to even take it in. Like literally day one, I was on it, and
Yeah.
that's just I'm a project manager by nature, so it's like how do I get this project set up to start working this thing through? And so for me, that point hit a year and a half to 2 years later. Some other things, like you said, some other life events cropped up that were pretty major that piled on, and all of a sudden, it's like boom, what am I, doing? And so it, like you said, it opened up that scope after I got through that grieving process, opened up that scope of vision that said, yeah, we're looking at a lot bigger stuff here, folks, and start taking this in stride and really, broadening, like I love the fact that I just try to get everything out of every. It's bad because I have extreme FOMO now. I mean, it's awful. It's like I'd hate missing out on stuff, and so I want to take advantage of every second I can. And when I can, I definitely like wow. It's just I'd never want to leave a situation saying I regret this. If I'm with you today or my mom tomorrow, I want to feel like, man, if something happened and I'm gone or she's gone, that I don't feel like, wow, I wish I'd said one last thing or I wish I'd done one last thing. That every time I leave, I feel like, man, I've done it. I've ridden the runway out on this one. This feels great, because you don't know. I mean, we have a disease, but you could, something could happen to somebody or yourself at any point in life, and so it transcends what we're talking about, and just that life is broad, and you should always, you know, hopefully be in a space where you do. I love that give yourself grace and then open up to everything you're doing because there's just so much out there.
Yeah, and to your point, I do have the FOMO go on as well, and I do push myself beyond my limits because I don't want to miss out, or
I am.
I don't want to disappoint people, and I just want to get as much out of life as possible, and I am also very much aware that when I do that, I'm going to pay for it, and
Yeah, it's like
that's the ugly side.
going in is like, well, I'm going to stay out late for this concert, or I'm going to go out with some friends, or I'm going to for me out. I found that I'm not a big drinker or anything, just socially more of a binge drinker, like event type drinking, like hey, I'm going out for a night with one friend, so it's like, less like everyday stuff. But alcohol was a big trigger for me, like,
Yeah.
and it got worse and worse as time went on. Like I just like and it could be just life catching up with me too, but I felt like wow, just having one beer was making my MS symptoms like hit from 0 to 60. Not quite in the moment, but not too far after, and definitely the next day or 2 days, even literally just one beer, and I felt just off for like 2 or 3 days. Like I've really got to stop drinking. But every once in a while, there's it's like I'm out with friends, and it's like oh, I'm gonna just be in the moment and know that this is gonna affect me in a certain way that I'm going to pay for, but I know it going in. I don't. It's not like I don't know it. I know it going in, so I'm making a choice, which I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, and I don't know what your symptoms are, but like I have vertigo, and so even completely sober, it looks like sometimes I've had a few to drink, and so
Yeah,
yeah, so definitely drinking alcohol intensifies that a little bit more.
yeah. No, I do. I've got vertigo. I've got a lot of the classic symptoms, that you hear. Like I get the spasticity. Like I can't stir a pot of soup for the life of me without getting my arm into it. Like just like you're just stirring or something. Like having to make like if I had to make something like caramel or you have to stir it for. It's like it's impossible. I come out. I'm like like a T-Rex. Try like even just doing this, it starts to cramp up. So I've got this that, and these are kind of now just pretty common. Like I can't get past these numbness all the time. It's just kind of predominant in my life. I've realized this is funny. I realized I didn't notice this for whatever reason. I believe my head is numb, like which is could be a good thing, but I whacked my head on the back of my bed, like the bed post
Yeah.
in the middle of the night, and I didn't even like register. Like I heard it, but I didn't feel it. It's like my wife went, "Oh my God, are you all right?" It's like, "What?" She's like, "You just whacked your head." It's like I didn't even feel it in my head. So I then felt there was a lump, right? But no, but I feel like okay, the numbness has moved up, and it's in it kind of goes up on it. So yeah, I've got some of the classic symptoms that rear up. Like I said, the lethargy, like gait issues and that kind of stuff that will rear up in those moments where I've overextended, like I don't get enough sleep or I do a bike ride. We'll talk about that in a minute. We both do the bike MS. We'll dig in a little more there, but
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the numbness of your head. So I my scalp always hurts, but my lesions are all on the right side of my brain. So my left side is what's affected. And like my
Interesting. Yeah.
hand is numb and it's tingling, but my whole left side. So most of my tattoos are on the left side of my body. And my kids make fun of me because they're like, "Well, what are you doing?" I'm like, I can't feel it on that side. So it's a much easier tattoo. So
Yeah.
they're all
That's
on this side of my body.
awesome. I didn't think. Well, I should go out and get the head tattoo. It's like, why do you have tattoos in these really weird places? Well, these are all the numb spots in my body, so I get tattoos there.
Yeah, exactly. So,
That's
you got to make light of it, right?
Yeah, that's exactly. Like you said, live in the moment. Kind of keep it at that level where it is a serious disease, and I appreciate that. But also keeping it light around the fact that what else can you do? You can head on with humor is always a good thing.
There's
Uh,
pros to it apparently.
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I mean, laughing is like there's like that's a real study. I mean, being positive is a real thing that helps yourself out.
Yeah.
Um, You mentioned Bike MS, so I just wanted to kind of as we're wrapping this up, talk a little bit about why we both do Bike MS. You said that was the first event um, that you gravitated towards. Why did you? Was it the spin? What brought you to Bike MS as your first event?
So yeah, so I love bike riding in general, but when I passed that year mark and I just decided this is enough. I'm done doing this. I wanted to push my body and I wanted to prove to myself that I could still use my body. It was still functional. And I don't honestly remember how I came across Bike MS. I don't, sure I saw it somewhere. Maybe I was on the MS Society website. I honestly don't know. But I saw it and I had talked my daughter into doing it with me. And I was like, look, I want to do this. I want to see how far I can make it. I'm not expecting to make it all the way. Never done an actual outside ride like that before.
Mm.
Had no idea Colorado had so many hills until that bike ride. I mean, I guess it's just something you don't think about as you're driving around
Yeah,
until you're on a bike and you have to use your own power to get up them. But so I had wrote my daughter into doing it with me, and it was from Front Range Community College in Westminster to Fort Collins, as you're aware. And I think that first year, which was 2022, is the first one that I did because it'll be my third year. So it was 2022. And that year, the shortest route from Front Range to CSU was 67 miles. Okay, I'm going to do this. And I did. My daughter made it about a mile. She made it around the corner to do you take the route, right? From
yep,
Front Range to CSU. Okay.
yep,
So she made it around the corner to 120th and Sheridan, I think where that Walgreens
yep.
is. Maybe a mile. I don't even know if it was a mile. Her knee started acting up. She was not great. And so I made the decision. I'm just going to keep going. I'm going to do this by myself. It was a lot. It was a lot for me to do.
Yeah,
I fell 3 times that year. My body hurt. I can't even describe the amount of pain my body was in. I cried, but I made it. I passed the 67-mile mark. I finished it. And I swore to myself I would never do it again. I said, I just want to do this to prove to myself that I could do it.
yeah.
Past the finish line, having a beer afterwards, and I was like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to sign up to do it again next year, and I did. I did it with my
Addictive.
son-in-law and my other daughter last year. I was really trying for that century ride,
Yeah,
and we had to make the cutoff by a certain time. I think we missed it by like half an hour.
yeah.
So we ended up doing 76, but I went ahead. My daughter was by herself. I think she made it like 27 miles. She went from couch to bike. So I was very proud of her. My son-in-law stayed with me. We crossed the finish line together last year, 76. And then this year we're trying for that 102. I think we need to make some adjustments. I'm not a fast bike rider.
Yeah,
And I refuse to use an e-bike. I know that people need them and people use them and that's their thing. Me, I I'm stubborn, first of all, but I also need to prove to myself that I can still do it with my own power.
yeah.
And so, if I never make the 102-mile mark, that's okay. But I want to get out there and prove to myself I can do it. I want to do it for people who can no longer do it, my husband's aunt, or people that just for whatever reason can't do it. It's
Yeah.
for them as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's an important piece. I mean, there is some pride there. I've been through all those emotions, and I'm at that stage where it's some years it's harder. Like I've done a century a while ago. So I've done a couple of those. Every year I try to do the full 150. Some years it's rare that my MS has caused an issue. I've had bike issues before that have caused me to bag out. Life issues, where I just had conflicting things where I had to leave. Weather issues. In 2021 it was a big rain and cold year. If I
I
got
heard.
caught, I got caught in crappy, rain, coming out of lunch and ended up getting hypothermia.
Oh no.
So, and I just couldn't recover from it. I just, once I was there, just I was over. The nurse wouldn't let me. I was ready to leave. My pride was telling me get on this bike and keep going. It stopped raining. And the nurse was like, "Yeah, I'm taking the keys to your bike, friend. You're not going anywhere except for in that truck with this space blanket around you, because you can barely talk to me because you're shaking so badly." But so it's good that she did because I probably was out of my mind. So yeah, we do have a sense of pride. Everybody, I'm sure a lot of people do. It's like you do want to, and like you said, I also talk to people who need an e-bike, who feel like that's their route, and that's good that they've come to that decision and comfortable. And then I might be at that decision at some point too. Is like if I want to stay in the mix with everybody and not have to ride just 30 miles, or if I want to stay. And again, whatever I think, we talked about it earlier. Whatever stage I'm at, I'll be happy at that stage. I'll have made the decision and have made it in a way that I'm comfortable with it. Whether it's, hey, I'm at the point where now all I can do is volunteer, and I'm cool with that because that's my path now.
Yep.
That's important to kind of just be okay with, that again, that's talk to yourself about it every time, and be comfortable when you make it.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that brings me back is the camaraderie. That first year, so the first year I had the I Ride with MS jersey. Last year I was a top fundraiser, and so I wore that jersey. I think I'm going to go back to the I Ride with MS. So many people, and I saw the Coneheads that first year, and it was just it's so fun to see all of you out there riding every year. I just love it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a fun way to identify teammates for sure. Like I can always like, yep, I see a teammate, I see a teammate. Yeah,
Yeah, and it just it keeps you going too, because
yeah,
it's fun to see. But honestly, the camaraderie that first year is what brought me back the second year, and even this year is everybody on that route. I mean, it's not a race; it's a bike ride for we're all in the same cause. Whether you have MS, whether you know someone with MS, whether you're just out there supporting MS,
yeah.
all out there for the same cause. And people out, I see people helping each other. I met so many great people. I met Heather that first year. And then I saw her at the kickoff event. And so now we're Facebook friends, and now it's official. Um, but yeah, so I saw her. I think she's part of Meat Fight or something. But yeah, just I cannot, I've never been part of something that had so much camaraderie
Hmm.
in my life. And I just, people would talk to you along the way, and they would cheer you on. And it's just a fun group of people. And
Yeah,
it makes me want to keep coming back. And, I will strive to hit my goal. And if I don't hit it, that's okay. I'll just do what I can.
yep.
So I feel like I need to continue doing it. I want to hit that century ride in one fell swoop. And then I also want to eventually do both days. I haven't done both days yet.
Gotcha.
So
Yeah. Those are great goals. Yep. And you do a lot outside of Bike MS now too. Your fundraising. I know at least one fundraiser coming up in May, which we'll have. I'll put a link for that out in the post when I post this out in different places. We'll make sure everybody knows about that. And you're also selling candles, which is cool. So you've got another kind of fun thing for people to be able to donate and give back, but also get something in return.
yeah, so March was MS Awareness Month, and so the candle company donated all proceeds, and then I'm still tallying up everything, and I'm going to donate to the Rocky Mountain MS Center. They have been a huge.
Yeah. Great organization.
They are so great. I have friends there now. I actually serve on the finance committee at the Rocky Mountain MS Center now,
Nice.
um, and I volunteer with them as well. They have an MS walk coming up and all of that. So yeah. It's great to be so involved. My cycle bar event is coming up on May 19th, as you said. All those proceeds are going to go directly to my Bike MS event.
Nice.
I'm securing raffle items. It's going to be great. It's going to be a great time. So I'm
Yeah, it's so
excited.
fun to get. We didn't even get to scratch the surface on fundraising ideas, but maybe we'll do it. I'm looking at another episode where we can just talk all about fundraising because everybody does it a little differently and approaches it with such creativity. It'd be nice to share that out and so for folks who are coming in, a lot of times that's the barrier to entry when you're riding. Is like I don't know how to fundraise, and so people do get anxious around that. So I'd love to have you back to talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, it took
Um,
me a little bit. I don't like. I'm sure, like most people, people don't like asking for money. I'm over
yeah,
that.
yeah,
um, Bike MS is my biggest fundraiser of the year, though. So I mean, I won't generally fundraise for, like, I do the Walk MS. I don't generally fundraise for that because I just feel I still feel somewhat bad about it. But yeah, I'm not scared to get myself out there and raise funds for
you
me,
bet.
for you, for my husband's, and for everybody,
That's
and even
that kind of where
future
I am.
generations.
Yep.
You know.
That's where I am. It's like I'm doing this not just for me. I'm doing it for more for the there's so many more of us out there. We're a small piece of the bigger puzzle, and it goes to such great cause. And it's I talked about this with Erica. The money is broken up. It's a really great organization. They do a great job at spending the money. So
Yes,
they're well rated, and they do a lot of effort into putting that back in, better than most organizations do. So it's good to
absolutely.
see. Cool.
Yes.
I've got a couple quick rapid fire questions as we end up here. I've
Right.
been
Hit
doing
me.
them. Yep, you ready? So
Yep.
yeah. So really quickly, when you're riding, is it goo or is it gummies
Oh, it's
or else?
gummies.
Yeah, thank you. I'm finally somebody else who is a gummy like goo is okay when that's all you had, but the minute they gave me candy to eat on the ride, I'm down with candy. It's like, yeah, I'm eating gummy bears all day long. So it
Yeah, yeah. I
feels
brought a
like I'm
few packs last
yeah,
year and I
yeah,
shared them out with people. So yeah, the
right, yeah.
goo.
It's like
There's something about the texture in goo that's just not fabulous.
yeah, and you have to you're squeezing it. Just it's so much more complicated. The gummies are for me the only way to go.
Yes, yes.
Um, Robert Plant or Willie Nelson or neither.
Probably. I mean, if I had to, probably Willie Nelson, but neither. I'm not.
And then who would replace that? What lead singer would drop in there?
Oh God, I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this. Oh, stuff for this. Sorry.
Hey, this is
Um,
this is a podcast that goes, well, you are the first person to cuss, but I've always said at the beginning it's like I have no holds barred. I'm not a big cusser, but sometimes they slip out. Whatever.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But I am a big Taylor Swift fan. Actually, she has her own channel right now on Sirius XM, and I have my stereo. Yelled at my husband yesterday because he took it off of Taylor Swift radio.
Uh,
So, yeah, I'm big into Tay Tay right now. So I
Nice. I
have to
saw
go
the
with her.
perfect calendar. If you look it up, there's a calendar that has every day it has a song on it, and it has it's a little mini piano, and you can play the song. Like it has the
Yeah.
chords to the song for Taylor Swift. So it's 365 days. I work with a gal who's a big Taylor Swift fan, so I've been thinking about getting it for her.
Oh, you're gonna need to send that to me or show me how to get
Yeah.
it. 'Cause, yeah, I'm
I'm gonna
all
send
about
it
it.
to you. Yeah, it's hilarious. Yes, no, she's great by the way. She's such a great artist.
She's
But
fabulous.
it feels like almost like you can't say it because it's such a Swifty thing to say. I'm a Swifty.
Yeah.
Uphill or downhill?
Ah,
What's your favorite? Not the easiest, but what's your favorite?
um, probably uphill. It's not easy. It's not fun. Downhill, I like downhill because obviously you're not having to exert anything and you get the wind but it kind of freaks me out to get going super fast. I feel like I'm gonna fall.
Die? Yeah, die.
Yeah,
Right on the course.
my
Yeah.
dad when I was little used to be a big bike rider. He would do marathons and triathlons
Hmm.
and all the things, and he was a big bike rider. And I remember, I think I was like 8 or 9, and we were waiting for him, and he never showed up. And he had was going downhill on his bike, and he hit a pothole,
Oh.
and he just went tumbling.
Oh.
And he still has scars on his body.
Yeah.
And so going downhill fast freaks me out. So I do think even though it's harder, I do prefer uphill. And again, it goes back to I can prove to myself that my muscles still work and
Yeah,
I
it's
can get
an
myself up
accomplishment.
that hill.
Yeah. No, you're like staring that hill in the face and knowing that. I mean, I feel like I'm exactly in the zone with you on that. I don't like going downhill fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, no. And lastly, what's your favorite streaming show right now? What should people be watching?
Streaming show.
Yep. Or
Um,
podcast other than mine.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I have a favorite streaming show. Yeah, I don't. That
Yep.
one you put me on the spot.
Yep. I don't. I just started watching more streaming. I didn't. I just I did other things and I didn't watch. And just during the pandemic, I started doing more like working out and putting something on. So I started catching up on some of the older ones. Like I'd never seen Breaking Bad or some of the ones that people were talking about, Mad Men, like back from the early 2000s, mid 2000s that I just kind of went back and watched. And I've been kind of watching at least one. I can't keep probably more than one or two going. but
Yeah.
I'll get one or two going. I like
Yeah.
the I just watched the morning show. I it's kind of the one I just finished. So with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon, it was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
Dramatic but good.
I don't watch a lot of stuff. I just think I'm super busy, so I don't
Yeah.
usually watch a lot. So I don't. I'll probably think of it after we hang up on this call. That's
Right.
probably what will
You
happen.
get back online by yourself, just right into the camera, and then I'll find it later on. What is this last bit?
I'll send you
Um,
a little video of just
there you
myself.
go. Right, watching it. Like there I am. Look at me watching the show. Uh,
Exactly.
cool. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. It was a great story. I really enjoyed hearing it from you, and I think we, talked about a lot of important stuff that resonates with so many folks. So again, really appreciate having you on, and hope you enjoyed yourself.
I did. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Yep, and I'll see you out there. If I don't see you at one of the fundraising events, definitely see you on the road, and we'll make sure to meet in person officially during the ride weekend.
Absolutely. I think it's June 29th this year, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
20, and I'm riding one in June 1st in Virginia, so I've got two lined up.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I'm passporting out to Virginia because I'm from there, and I have friends riding it, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to come out and ride it?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." It has been a while since I've done a duel, so yeah, let's do it. So that'll be interesting. It's pretty flat ride, so it'll be kind of a different experience, but fun nonetheless.
Yep, that's my next fundraising goal is I want to be a passport writer. So
There
I'll
you
get
go.
there. Baby
Yep,
steps.
yep, awesome. Well, again, thank you so much, and thank you everybody for watching or listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Bobby.